Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue my series on adapting the fighting fantasy rules to a Twine game using the Sword and Planet subgenre of science fiction to inspire the setting and the plot. More specifically, I would like to show an example of playtesting the game. I have been writing a section for all of the time that I've been making these videos and have been actually up to making a game. The section of the game that I've been writing is one where you meet this group of alien hunter-gatherers, which I haven't yet named, but which I've sort of conceived of what they look like and so on. And I've been writing that section where you live with them. The idea being that if you survive, you will move on to another part of the world that is populated by humans, because one of the really core tropes of Sword and Planet is that that the main character is a person from Earth, usually a man from Earth, but in this case I'm never defining the gender of anyone involved. You're a person from Earth and you meet an alien who is functionally human. They might be sort of cosmetically different, they might have green skin or something like that, but fundamentally they are human, and you fall in love straight away, and your goal is to win their love. And so for that to happen, you need to have humans, and so therefore you can't spend the whole game amongst these alien creatures who are sort of much bigger than you and gorilla-like. There is a Sword and Planet book called The Stone God Awakens, I think it's called, where the human character meets this sort of cat-like creature, a cat girl really, before there was a concept of cat girls, I guess, and has this sort of romance with her. It's a good book, but having the sort of love interest be a kind of anthropomorphic cat makes it really weird. Especially because the main character is worried about whether he should have sex with this person, but it's not because there's a power difference. It's not because he's worshipped as a living god by these people. It's because he wonders whether it would be bestiality. And it struck me as really weird that you have this sort of quite a lot of attention given to a guy going, oh, I really want to have sex with this cat girl, but is that bestiality? Does that, like, I don't know, is that weird? And yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, perhaps for some people that would be a dream come true, but I don't know. It's not something that particularly appeals to me, and it's not something that I want to do in my story. Well, I need human-looking humans, and so therefore the character needs to move on. But the point is that I have finished I finished a version of the section with the ape-like creatures, and I'm now ready to test that. And testing, we can divide into two, at least two different types. First of all, normal playtesting, where we play through the game and see what happens and see if, especially when it's me doing it, I see whether what I experience as a player is what I was imagining when I was writing the game. Does it feel the way that I kind of imagined it would feel? Are the difficult bits difficult? Are the easy bits easy? Etc., etc. Do the parts connect in the way that I've been imagining that they do? Do the parts that I thought would happen most of the time happen most of the time? Do the things that I thought would happen rarely, and so on? And so that's one sort of playtesting. That's probably what we think of when we think of playtesting. And we can include with that me personally playtesting it, and then of course me making it open to other people and encouraging other people to playtest it and seeing what they think about it. And the other sort of playtesting is what you might call automated playtesting, where there's not a person testing it, it's the program itself. I will code a method by which the program itself will run through the game over and over again and keep track of how it does in different situations. So it might go through 100 virtual plays for each of the 4 characters, and then it might tell me, okay, for character 1, 60 of them got through this section. For character 2, 50, whatever the stats are. In other words, I won't get information on a given single play. I'll just get sort of overall statistics. And they're good for different things. I don't think you can replace one with the other. You need to have statistics, and playing through it yourself is not going to give you those statistics, and even getting other people to play through it is not going to give you those statistics. But statistics can't tell you how the game feels, I suppose, because remember, these sorts of programs, or at least in book form, they're often called story games, and that term brings home that there's really 2 things that have to work here. It has to be a good story, and it has to be a good game. And a thing can be a good story without being a good game, and it can be a good game without being a good story. And so, broadly speaking, I suppose, when it's a person testing it, that's probably better to get information about how it works as a story. And when you're doing automated testing, that's probably better for learning how it works as a game. So I don't think I've really done enough to start doing automated testing yet. I would like to do more of the story before I start getting any statistics. So what I'm going to do with the remainder of this video is just do an example of a playthrough and an example of what I'm thinking as I go through the playthrough. So I'm going to start by choosing a random character, and I get the first character that I made, which is the character who is sort of desperate for money. And because I'm testing it, normally I just, okay, I got that one, and press continue. But one of the things that you should do when you're playtesting, I think, is try and read all of the stuff, right? Try and read it, and in particular, try and read it try and read it sort of afresh. Try and read it as if you were reading it for the first time, which of course isn't possible because you're not. But at least rather than go, oh yeah, it's this guy, click, right, let's do something, let's see what happens next. Try and read it and think about how it would feel to read it for the first time. So I'll read it out loud. Obviously, if I was doing a proper playtest, I wouldn't bother reading it out loud, but I will. The money the scientist offered was good, ridiculously good, if you'd stopped to think about it. But you didn't. You needed it to be true, and so you believed it was. You didn't notice that the questions they asked you had very little to do with physics and a lot to do with whether anyone would miss you. When they told you to stand in the chamber, you stood in the chamber. By the time you noticed anything was wrong, it was a million miles too late. And then it says you are experienced in surviving on the streets and your initial luck is 6. Obviously, assessing the quality of one's own writing is very, very difficult. I think that is clear, at least. I think that tells me the information that it tells me, the player, the information that I, the designer, wanted to convey to the player. That this is a person who's sort of been homeless, certainly had money problems, maybe doesn't have a lot tying them to Earth, or at least not a lot of wealth, that that they not a good life that they want to get back to on Earth. To me, it suggests I've sort of deliberately avoided saying when this happens. When on Earth is this meant to be? I think you could imagine that this was modern times, or you could imagine this was the past, like you know, the Depression, I guess, a time when lots of people were in this situation where there were a lot of sort of particularly men who were sort of, you know, rootless, homeless, kind of wandering, looking for, you know, looking for a sort of safe place to be and not finding it, even in relatively wealthy countries. I think, I feel like maybe some of my sentences are a bit long. I think this is quite long. You didn't notice that the questions they asked you had very little to do with physics and a lot to do with whether anyone would miss you. You might have noticed that I sort of stumbled a bit on how to pronounce, you know, where to put the stresses and stuff. And that's often a good sign that the sentence is ambiguous, as in depending on what comes next, that might change which stress goes on which word, and that in turn means that the sentence is a little bit harder to understand than if that weren't the case. So I might sort of flag that as being a potential problem. But, you know, on the whole, I think it does at least conveys the information that it is trying to convey, and that's, I guess, the bar that we want to clear at least. All right, so let's continue. You hurtle through the endless void. You cannot say whether you are rising, falling, or neither, whether you are awake or asleep, whether you are alive or dead. At last the void becomes the pure blue of a cloudless sky. You are no longer suspended in nothingness, but standing in the midst of dense jungle. The colours are more vivid than anything you have ever seen. You realise that you are seeing colours which should be impossible. There is a colour which contains both blue and yellow, and yet does not combine them into green. You see a red which is as dark as black, a blue as bright as white, a yellow of impossible purity. And now we start to get to this prose that's in brackets. And as I've said in previous videos, if it's like this, just normal prose, that means that it's a draft of how it would appear in the final product. Right? It's full sentences. Whereas when it's in brackets like this, I know that I need to expand it into that. It's not even possible that I could put it out like this. It's just it's a description of what happens, because I was concentrating on the structure of this part more so than on writing the exact prose. So it says, you see hunter-gatherers, they remind you of apes, save for their enormous size and bright fur, as multicoloured as the jungle itself. The only thing that leaps out at me on that is that I've actually started thinking about them as gorillas in particular, as being like gorillas. So maybe I'll change that. Maybe I'll change that to gorillas. Otherwise, I suppose you could say their enormous size is a bit ambiguous. Does that mean they're 50 feet tall, or does it mean they're 7 feet tall? So maybe a bit more specificity about what size we're talking about. Now I have a choice here, but if I stay hidden, well, we get to a point that we haven't written yet. So I sort of effectively don't. I'm going to reveal myself. All right. So I'm taken to village. I see the pit, unsure whether the thing in pit is animal or plant or some entirely alien category. One hunter-gatherer tries to hand you a feathered staff, but another intercedes. Argument. So what I mean by argument is that the ape things or the gorilla things are sort of arguing over what should happen here. I think I need to expand this. I don't think I've made it clear what's meant to be happening, although you could argue that a person just teleported to another planet probably would be a bit confused by what was happening. So now that I think about it, I'm not sure whether that's a problem or not. Like, should the player work out that what's happening here is some sort of initiation or something? Yeah, I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, I will grab my staff and jump in the pit and see what happens. All right, I'm unlucky. which is not that surprising given my low luck. You advance towards the creature, if creature it is. Okay, fair enough. So we've got a pit creature with skill 10, stamina 6. Will I keep fighting or escape? Well, I have skill 12, so I might keep fighting. And as you would expect, I'm wounding the creature just because my skill is higher than its. So I've done pretty well there. You jump out of the pit. Your initiation, if that is what it was, seems to have concluded. Shown to place by the fire. Not sure if they think you're an adult, a child, an animal, or something else, but they seem to accept that you can stay. Okay, so I notice a problem here, which is the implication seems to be that it's night. If you're shown to a place by the fire and you're thinking about sleeping, well, that suggests that it's nighttime and sort of time to go to bed, obviously. And I didn't say anything about that in the previous paragraphs. So I think I need to either say something in a previous section that says, you know, it seems to be evening, or you can see the sun in the sky. It doesn't look like the sun of Earth. Perhaps it's different in some way, or have sort of time passes here. But I'll probably thinking about those two alternatives, I think I'll probably say that it's evening in the previous paragraphs. All right, next day. So which one are we going to look at? I would probably I might test all three and see what happens using the backspace. So far, of course, one of the main things we're looking for here is errors. We're looking for things that aren't just sort of what I've found so far, which is, I could rewrite this to improve it a bit. What we're mostly looking for is things that just don't do what they're meant to do. Either the game crashes or gives me an error message, or you go from one scene to another and that's not what's meant to have happened, or something like that. But I'm glad to say that so far we haven't found any, so that's really good. Okay, so let's go with those hunting and collecting food. A hunter-gatherer kneels down and indicates that you should jump on its shoulder. All right, let's do so. The day goes well. Okay, that was very lucky. I got a 5 when my luck was 5, so you get the distinct impression that the hunter-gatherers credit you for their good luck. All right, let's go back to those weaving baskets. Okay, so we made our skill roll, which is not surprising given we have skill 12. We will always make our skill roll. Fair enough. And let's have a look at the last option. I actually think I want to change this one anyway. Change the probabilities. But let's have a look at this, see what happens. You help watch the children, although you are no bigger than one of them yourself. Roll the die. The day passes uneventfully. Respect +1. All right, fair enough. All right, so let's continue with this. All of those three options are meant to go to this, and indeed seems like they do, so that's good. Next day, the entire group takes part in a ritual. You ask the purpose, but they seem to assume that everyone knows what this activity is. Okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because how is he asking, or I'm assuming it's he because I'm assuming the character's me. How is the character asking the purpose when we haven't said anything about learning the language? I wrote this when I assumed it would be sort of several weeks after you'd arrived, and so maybe you've started to learn some of the language, but when it's the very next day after you arrive, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's a thing that I definitely have to fix. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why I haven't bothered trying to write the exact words, because if you write the exact words and I could have struggled about how to express this concept that your language isn't working, and then decided, actually, I don't want that at all. Because it doesn't make sense, I want the person to have no idea about the language. So, my effort would be wasted. I want to make sure that the summary is what's going to be in the final product before I start expanding it, so as not to waste my effort. Although, of course, sometimes inspiration takes me and I do write the full thing, so I don't stick to that very well, but I guess that's sort of what I should do. All right, so let's take a large gulp, see what happens. Actually, we'll do the same thing. I'll have a look at each choice. The liquid is delicious. You feel yourself healing. The hunter-gatherers seem to disapprove. Stamina and luck +4. Respect -2. That makes sense. Take a small sip. Yep, they seem to approve. And let's look at the final one. Take a large... Oh, hang on. That's not right. Oh, no, sorry. I want to do this one now. The hunter-gatherers murmur at your action, and you get the impression that you have made a decision without realising it. After everyone else has sipped, an old member of the group makes what seems to be a formal speech to you, or I should rewrite that to seems to you to be a formal speech, one which, of course, you do not understand. I rolled a 5. My respect is 4. That equals 9. I rolled a die, and I got 10 coins. And I don't see anything. I don't see anything to sort of dispute about that. That seems pretty clear. And then we will get to a point where we haven't written it. So I didn't find any errors. That's an example of playtesting. Obviously, real playtesting, you do it, it's not something you just do once. It's something you'd sort of do over and over again. But I didn't notice any errors, so that's good. Everything seems to be joined up in the way that I want it to be joined up. I haven't necessarily... I think... Obviously, I'd have to go through it a couple more times to see this, but I sort of felt like maybe I should have lost a bit more stamina by now, or like I'm sort of through it and I've only lost 1 luck point. And that feels like maybe that's a bit easy. I do have skill 12, so, but on the other hand, yeah, I would sort of, I guess I vaguely had the idea that maybe it would have been a bit more wounded, by now. And so I could look at sort of having other incidents that reduce your stamina, or have the potential to, depending on what you do. Of course, you don't want to just purely make someone lose stamina. You want it all to be sort of the result of choices and random chance, but put a bit more danger in there anyway. And I've also got some sort of prose stuff to be getting on with. So that's what I'll do. Having done that testing, I will now try and work on the code. I think it's best to try and work on the game as soon as possible after you do the testing, so it's fresh in your mind. So I'll probably once you hear this video, obviously I will have uploaded it. So I probably will have done the testing by that time. In other words, I will, as I record this, I will finish this video, then I'll work on the coding, then I'll upload the video. And of course, I'll see what see what sort of seems most interesting to me to add next time, and we'll see where we are. I do have an idea of how the this section that hasn't been written, I have an idea for, well, actually this, not particularly this one, because this is where you leave the camp, but if you're not kicked out of the camp, I have an idea for how that ends, which I haven't written yet. Basically a human merchant comes to the group, and you're really excited because you've spent, there's like a sort of several months past. Like what we've seen so far is kind of more or less, it's describing one day after the next, but it's sort of the story moves forward in time a little bit, and you like these people, people, apes, whatever. You think they're pretty good. There's a lot to admire about them, but you really want to find humans. You know, you really kind of want to go home. You want to at least meet other humans. And therefore, when a merchant turns up who apparently is human, you're quite happy to leave with them. So that might be what I write next. Maybe I will have some ideas about new dangers to put in this section. But I guess we'll find that out in future videos. So for now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.